I don't know about this one, guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. I mean, look, I know Oda is very well known for giving tragic backstories to his characters. Like, you have Brook, stuck as a skeleton for 50 years, adrift in the Florian Triangle with only the corpses of his friends to keep him company. That's pretty messed up. You have Nico Robin on the run from the world government ever since the age of 8, being called a devil child, losing her mother, dying right in front of her eyes. Nami, basically in service, in slavery, really, to a bunch of fish people. But let me tell you something right now. The character that we're talking about today, the tragedy that is this character, makes all that shit seem like a week's paid vacation at fucking Disney World. We are, of course, referring to Caesar Clown. And you know what's really messed up? The events that have made his past a living hell are still going on to this day in the series. He is still treated like a punching bag. Let me break this down for you. All Caesar Clown ever wanted was just to live in his high-tech laboratory in the middle of an Arctic wasteland, mooching money off of a Yonko, hiring prostitutes to come to the island so he could have some fun times on the weekend, while he spends his weekday experimenting on kidnapped children with illicit drugs. Now that right there is a moral person. That is a typical blue-collar man in this universe that just never had a chance to live his life because the fucking Straw Hats and that stupid doctor with a poofy hat had to show up on his island, wreck his shit, destroy his entire lab, all of his SAD, everything that he had to make his life worth something was destroyed. All of his test subjects were taken from him, heart ripped out of his body, sexy harpy assistant killed by his own hand. He was tricked into killing his own hot, sexy, big busted harpy assistant. How messed up is that shit? And now, he is still in service to the Straw Hats, kept in chains, used as transport whenever it's convenient, always forced to do things that he doesn't want to do. Man, I gotta tell you something. Oda, I know this is supposed to be just a shonen, but you're really bordering seinen shit right now with Caesar, okay? I don't know, you better be careful, okay? If one more tragedy happens to this character, I think we're all gonna riot. Okay, well, alright, is that good enough? I rolled with that longer than I thought I was going to. That was just gonna be a one-off gag. Alright, so, fucking Caesar Clown, my god. Alright, you know what? You gotta have a little bit of endearing nature for Caesar, like, he started off as such a douche nugget, and, just the villain of his arc, like, we don't see Hody around anymore. Hody's not gonna stop by later in the story, he's like, okay, I'm back, and it's like, oh shit, Hody Jones is back. But no, it's Caesar, he's been around in every arc. He's played a crucial role at one point or another. It's kind of rather interesting how Oda is sort of making him sort of like a supporting cast kind of character, right? There's even people that even want him to join the Straw Hats. Now, while I don't think that's gonna happen, I think his character is rather amusing to me. He starts off as rather like an intimidating guy. The first time we see him back on Punk Hazard, he just takes the form as this amorphous, gaseous being with a demon face. He actually needs to use that form a little bit more often. He would be a little bit more intimidating, I feel. We find out that he was one of the world's best top scientists with a bounty of 300 million, the same bounty that Luffy had before the time skip. So this guy isn't like some just two-bit guy that's just experimenting on his island, The world government had him in his employ. They know how dangerous Caesar is. He was responsible for turning Punk Hazard into a wasteland, basically causing a nuclear disaster, at least the equivalent of a nuclear disaster on the island. He blames it on Vegapunk when in reality it was Caesar that was at fault there. But then he ended up setting up shop on this island. He has his laboratory there after the events of, Aokiji and Akainu's duel on Punk Hazard. Half the island is awash in magma and volcanoes and molten death, while the other half is a Arctic wasteland where, Caesar's now residing in his laboratory. He was hired by Big Mom, we find out, to perform the gigantification experiments. So basically, Big Mom's her whole goal is to have a bunch of the races of all the world around a table as equals. Not metaphorical, not like everybody's equal in terms of rights on her island. No, she means it quite literally. She wants everybody to sit around a dining table and have a meal on literal eye level with herself. And of course, Big Mom is pretty fucking huge, so the best thing that she could come up with on this is, I will hire one of the greatest scientists in the world to perform these experiments to make everybody huge like me. You know, that's the kind of twisted way that Big Mom operates, you know? So she hires Caesar to perform these gigantification experiments on children. Meanwhile, Caesar is also kind of double dipping, so to speak, because he's also contracted by Joker, Don Quixote Doflamingo, to produce the SAD, the SAD, that material that is used to create the smiles, the artificial devil fruits, which then Joker brokers over to Kaido. So Caesar is kind of a conniving little bastard here. He's taken money from both, basically two Yonkos. Now that's a dangerous game in and of itself, but he's a smart guy, and he feels like I can manipulate both parties while I get out ahead of time. You know, he was taking money from Big Mom and then using it to pay for, instead of actually the experiments, because, it's really quite impossible to do what Big Mom was asking to do. Instead, hiring prostitutes to come to the island so he could have a fun night with them. And then meanwhile, though, he was actually producing the SAD very well for Joker's part. He was more accommodating to Doflamingo and Kaido's cause, right? All up until, one day, and he, even the people on the island, the subordinates on his island, like the prisoners and stuff, he helped heal with his science, his technology. He gave them the ability to move since they weren't able to move due to being paralyzed by the gas. He set himself up as this really great guy, that's like a caring boss for his subordinates, when in reality he was just a conniving backstabber. Finally, it comes to a head when Law arrives at the island. Law wants his own, he has his own plans to kind of take down Doflamingo and Kaido. Caesar allows him to stay there in exchange for, his heart. In exchange for that, Law takes Monet's heart. Monet is a member of the Doflamingo family, one of the higher members that are just kind of there, as well as Virgo, who is an executive who eventually comes to the island. Eventually, the Straw Hats land on the island, and then Smoker and Tashigi follow suit, and then just the events of Punk Hazard kick off, which results in Luffy beating the shit out of Caesar and them kidnapping him, taking him with them, and Law to enact his plan, using Caesar as bait to lure out Doflamingo and eventually crumble down the criminal empire that Doflamingo and Kaido have set up. The funny thing is, while Caesar was intimidating how he first appeared in Punk Hazard, and even a little bit when he was fighting Luffy, because his terrifying aspects, he ate the gas fruit, which is a Logia, which allows him to give complete control over gas, and that's a pretty dangerous ability. Not just utilizing this power just for like poison gas or anything like that, but also removing all of the oxygen in the air so that you can't breathe, which allows you to knock his opponents out, whoever they are, even Luffy in that regard. He had this ability to create like a blue sword of oxygen and lighting it on fire. His gastanets, which were these little clackers, these little castanets he had that when clapped they would cause a spark, and then he ignited his gas. And then he could just reform himself using his power. He also had his hand in creating weaponry. A lot of gas weapons that he brokered to the underworld, most notably Shiro Kuni. Although it's funny, Caesar apparently sucks at making killing gas that can kill people, which is what the underworld wants from him. When you're brokering a genius scientist to make you a gas weapon, I would assume that the one thing you would want that gas weapon to do is fucking kill people. But he really does suck at his job, because Shiro Kuni, he bills it as this ultimate weapon. It's this huge cloud that just anything it comes in contact with just petrifies. And it's like, it's genius. It'll kill an entire island. Which is really intimidating until you find out that it actually doesn't kill the people that it petrifies. And then later on, Jack, when invading Zou, he uses a gas weapon that was developed by Caesar called Koro, or it was literally just called Kill. It was literally called Kill Gas against the minks, and it doesn't kill them right away. Rather, it gives you 48 hours to live before it kills you. Or rather, it gives you 48 hours until an antidote can be utilized. Like, for instance, like if you don't inject the antidote within 48 hours, it will kill you. Or it'll eventually kill you. You're too far gone. So it's not even a guarantee that within 48 hours you will die. And Caesar, upon arriving at Zoe, is basically forced to cure the gas with his Roku, which is the opposite, a neutralizing effect. But come on now, Caesar, how hard is it to really create a gas that would kill people? I'm just saying, like, this is really weird and fucked up to say, but the Nazis figured this shit out like 70 years ago. It's called Zyklon B. It's not really hard. Kills you in a matter of minutes, and yet Caesar, a being that is literally made out of gas and has complete control over gas, has a hard time figuring this shit out, apparently. But ever since the events of Punk Hazard, ever since Luffy fucking Gumu Gumu no Grizzly Magnum into the side of the fucking wall and knocked his sorry ass out, he's been sort of like a comic relief character. The running gag with Caesar is that he's constantly being bullied, constantly being pushed around, constantly being put into dangerous circumstances, while just nobody gives a shit whatsoever about his opinion, and we as the audience kind of go along with it, because the dude fucking experimented on kidnapped children. The dude was selling mass slaughter weapons to other nations. Regardless of their lethality, he was still a fucked up guy. Alright, so let's not forget that. You know, he might be set up as sort of like a comic relief character, especially as of right now during the Totland arc, but this guy, left to his own devices, he is pretty messed up. You don't think he would turn over a new leaf. You think, like, if they gave Caesar his heart back and he puts it in and he was, like, set off to greener pastures, like, go, be free, you magnificent gaseous bastard. Do you think he would just live a happy life out in the middle of the country somewhere? Oh, no shit, man. He would start up with the experiments again. He would start kidnapping fucking test subjects. He would start enacting his, nefarious plan to try to get ahead, causing, shouting for revenge for all the people that have wronged him. It's just that right now in the story, he can't do any of that stuff because he's constantly surrounded by people that are stronger than him. So he's taken away by the Straw Hats-in-Law, used as bait for Doflamingo. The deal doesn't go well, of course. Basically used as transport on Dressrosa to get over to the Green Bit. Eventually ends up in Zoe after the swirly eyebrow pirates managed to make their escape. He's just treated like shit by Sanji and Brook, just knocked around. In fact, it's funny because every time they get brought up, like Caesar will bring up something like, "Oh, I'm pretty awesome, I was able to do all this crazy stuff with the gas and everything, and aren't I a genius?" And all the Straw Hats are just like, "No, you're a fucking asshole, you're ridiculous, you're a scumbag." And Caesar's just like, man, if he did have his powers, if he was at full power and everything like that, he could have he might not kill you, but he would be able to deal some damage with you, You should at least give him some lip service, at least be a little bit kind of nice to him, because the first opportunity he gets, he's gonna bail, or he's gonna try to kill you, or gonna try to suffocate you or something, But he's taken to Zoe. He's forced by the Straw Hats to cure the minks. You maybe feel a little bit like he's kind of redeeming himself, like he has a little bit of pleasure in healing the minks and trying to heal everybody there and trying to cure his gas, and helping people out. You think that maybe he's starting to turn over a new leaf. But I don't think it's that easy. Considering all the stuff he's done in the past, I don't think it's that easy at all. And then you finally get to Totland, where he's eventually bullied around by Big Mom, which that was a really funny scene. In fact, that was just the last episode of the anime, which is one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to do this. It's the episode where you have Caesar being, kneeling before Big Mom, and Big Mom, luckily she's a few candy apples short of a county fair, and she doesn't really notice that Caesar's trying to fuck her over with, taking all of her money and rutting, basically. And so she's just like, I want this amazing dream, all the races in the world around the table, and I keep giving you money, and every time I gave you money, you kept saying, "Oh, I'm almost done, Big Mom, I'm almost done." And Caesar, of course, he puts on the fucking facade. He would be really good at lying and deceit. He was really good with, deceiving his subordinates, and deceiving Big Mom, but every other person worth their shit knows that he's lying through his freaking teeth. So he comes up and says, it's all because of the Straw Hats, Big Mom. I was this close to realizing your dream, and then they showed up, and then I turned into this awesome gas form, but it didn't work, and Luffy still beat my ass. If it wasn't for them wrecking my lab, which that lab's gone now, Big Mom. I'm sorry. I would be having your gigantification. I would have everything ready to go. And Big Mom, she buys that shit. Hook, line, and sinker, she buys that shit. And she's like, oh, don't worry. We prepared an exact replica of your laboratory. You'll be able to recreate your experiments just fine. So, ready in 2 weeks? Ready in 2 weeks. So, that was a pretty funny scene there. And then Pero Sparrow with his fucking tongue, who is even creepier than Caesar. It'd be possible, but it is. He's back there licking his fucking lolly, being like, yeah, you better do it. You better get this shit done. And then you kind of feel like that's probably the most part, the part in the story where you feel the most sort of like sympathy for Caesar, where you're sitting there like, oh man, we've all been there, haven't we? The teacher comes up to you and been like, hey, you getting that paper done? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm halfway done with it. Oh shit, I haven't even started, man. You have a little bit of sympathy there, but it doesn't last long. Eventually, Beijay recruits him into the Fire Tank Pirates, gets him out of the lab, gets him away from Big Mom, and tries to enact his plan of trying to kill her by utilizing Caesar's gas ability to create the KX launchers, which are like these RPGs that are having like syringes on the end, which would pump this dangerous gas into Big Mom, this serum that'll like kill her immediately, this like special unique toxin that Caesar cooked up. It doesn't work, as we've seen. Her Death Screech was able to detonate the RPGs before they came in contact with her, and given Caesar's track record with poisonous gas, as I said, it might have not even have actually managed to kill her. They tried to escape the Tea Party. It didn't work. The plan fell through. The mirror got shattered. Brule was freed. And right now, he is still relevant. The plan right now is try to get everybody out of Whole Cake Island utilizing Caesar's ability to fly, because Caesar can turn into gas, of course. He can basically turn himself into a hot air balloon, allowing him to turn into a gas that's lighter than air, and then he can escape. So that's pretty cool. I would love to see Caesar and like all the different abilities he was capable of doing, There's a shit ton of chemical options here for Caesar, all the different gases he could turn into. And think about this. If Caesar has complete dominance, complete control over gas, like if he could it's the gas fruit. So does that mean he could just summon any kind of gas he wants at like a snap of his fingers? Because if that's the case, if that's something he could do, or if he could just mix chemicals together, just make anything on the spot, these are things that require like huge fucking machines to accomplish now. In laboratories, if he could just do that shit just by taking like, carbon dioxide, or no, could he take like hydrogen, right? Could he take like hydrogen gas and like break it down chemically to have like an infinite energy source? Like, I don't know if he could utilize shit like that. Could he? Could he just have complete dominance over gas? Even if it's like he can't create any kind of gas out of nothing, if it's like he can only control the gas that's like within his vicinity, that would still be kind of a really unique power. Oda doesn't really go all too scientific with it. He doesn't go super, super complicated into the story. But with Caesar's power, and considering he's kind of made him kind of like a supporting cast member, I would be fine with that. If you want to get a little bit more technical with Caesar, explaining like the different chemicals, and like this gas plus this gas equals this gas, and that's dangerous because it can explode and it can do this and all that shit. Yeah, I mean, he's already utilized this power in some way to create that airless world of his, removing the air from an area. Hell, if Caesar really wanted to, if he has complete control, if he could just remove a gas from an area, instead of just removing the air and knocking his opponent out, fucking, crank up the oxygen. If you just crank up the oxygen in a given area, you're going to have people, bloodshot eyes, fucking passing out, too much oxygen. If you up the CO2, you're going to have people dying of fucking carbon dioxide poisoning, sorry. Yeah, I mean, you could kill people rather easily. And maybe they could have killed Big Mom with this ability, with this power, that this KX launcher shit that he came up with. Maybe, it's possible. This is why it's confusing to me. Now, I get it. It's a shonen manga. You can't show, like, a mass death slaughter weapon You can't have like a genocide of an entire race of people by the hands of gas. That does kind of hit a little bit too close to home, involving, World War II and stuff in a lot of countries. But I'm just saying, like, the potential here for his abilities are really quite large, especially if he knew hockey. I don't think he knows hockey. I think he was spending too much time in the laboratory, focusing on his experiments and his science to actually work on that. But if he learned hockey, man, that would be really useful. His power is inherently even useful when it comes to, that's not the one. His power is even useful when it comes to, like, reconnaissance and shit. Being able to turn into gas. You could literally sneak through any crevice, any little crack. If you get thrown in any sort of jail cell that even has a tiny little fucking pinprick of a crack, he could escape it. I think that a lot of people might be thinking right about now, wow, Matt, you're really building Caesar Clown up to be this amazing character. He's a fucking joke. He's a dork. He's a scientist, you know? I think that's only because for the last few years that we've seen him, he's been chained up with C Prism Stone, not being able to use his ability, or he's had someone, have control of his heart at all times, squeezing it to prevent him from doing anything. So it's like, he is literally chained down here. He can't really do much of anything. But if they gave him his heart back and they just let him go, he would still be a force to be reckoned with, even if he's fighting against somebody that's using hockey, that could hit him, like Luffy could. If he uses his power any at all effectively, it should be a pain in the ass to take this guy down. When he fought against Luffy, I guess he just, he's very arrogant, which is, happens with a lot of villains in One Piece. So he got very arrogant. He thought that his Shirokuni gas would be able to defeat anything. He turned into his monstrous gaseous form, which he was an idiot because he was making himself even bigger to hit. The first time he fought Luffy, he was actually smart, using chemicals instead of his actual puffing up his body. But that's, like, Shirokuni ultimate mode. And it's stupid because it's like, oh, great, Luffy, thank you for making me a bigger target to hit. That's all that was there. And then he Grizzly Magnums the fuck out of him. So, yeah, he's an idiot in a lot of respects. He gets really over-arrogant, over-boastful about all of his abilities that he can use. But if he really buckled down and trained and learned hockey and used all of his abilities to a great extent, he would be a very dangerous villain to contend with. Now, what is the deal with Caesar later on in the story? What's going to happen with him later on? I don't think he's going to join the Straw Hats or anything like that. I hope they take him to Wano, though. I hope they get him to Wano. Because, like I said, his abilities would be very useful there for reconnaissance and stuff. Wano, we're trying to dethrone a corrupted shogun. We're trying to get Kaido out of there. Caesar Clown's abilities could be very useful there. If they bring him along. If they don't bring him along, I could see him joining up with the Fire Tank Pirates. Whether by force or, by his own desire. Either way, he's gonna need protection, because Kaido wants him dead, Big Mom wants him dead, and after the whole events on Whole Cake Island, I don't think even if they give him the option to leave and never come back, like, okay, Caesar, here's your heart back, you can leave. I don't think Caesar would be comfortable with that, with two Yonkos out to kill him. He would have to live his life in hiding, or try to see it through to the end, being like, oh my god, I hate being with you people, I hate being with you Straw Hats, I hate being with Law, I hate being with you Fire Tank Pirates. But we gotta do something about these Zonko. If I just leave, then they're gonna find me, they're gonna send out their forces to try to kill me, and then I'll be by myself. We gotta try to finish this to the end, but then I'm out. I'm gone. After we get rid of Kaido, after we get rid of Big Mom, I'm done. We're out. I have a better chance of taking them out with you guys than I do by myself, and I have nothing left. I have no laboratory. I have a bounty on my head. People are gonna be after me. It's best that I guess I just hang out with you people and just grit my teeth until the bitter fucking end. But, yeah, Caesar's still a dick. Don't get the wrong idea. He's still a dick. But he's a dick that has a good running gag. He has his comedic moments. I've laughed at a lot of his shtick. His ability is interesting if he learns how to use it. His potential is very interesting. And considering that he did just start off as like a cliche as fuck villain that's just like, I'm a genius scientist. I'm a genius mad scientist. Ha ha ha. I want to sell my weapons of mass destruction. Kind of cliche, kind of one note. But since then, Oda's kind of done some stuff with them. You know, I like that he managed to take this 2-bit villain and managed to actually make him rather of an interesting character. So good on you, Oda. Hope to see a little bit more of Caesar in the future. See where you're going with him. You know, we might have to part ways with the mad scientist at some point, but for right now, he's pretty entertaining. I'm cool with Caesar. He could stay around for a little while longer. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. This is Tekking signing out. Oh, and a big thanks to Zozamora. For being the one to actually recommend this. After I saw the last episode of the anime, I kind of thought about doing a Caesar discussion, but today was shitty, man. I was doing the part 2 of Luffy's video, and the file was corrupted, so I'm like, shit! Well, that was like an hour filming that, and I didn't want to do it all over again. I'll have to do it another day, but I still wanted to get a video out by the end of the day, and so I asked you good, loyal listeners out there on Twitter. So thank you for Zozamoras for the idea for the video. Thanks you guys for watching. Thanks for your support, your likes, and your subs, and all that good shit. This will be Tekking101 signing out, guys. All right, I'll do the Caesar laugh thing just because it's so much fun. I'm sorry.